Chair, Ms. Maher, who is Uri Berliner?
Mr. Berliner is a former senior editor,
That's all?
a former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time to
Peabody Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is,
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of
Never?
political bias determining editorial decisions, no.
Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
I mean, it wasn't 44-43, it wasn't 60-27, it wasn't 70-17, it wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased.
I now recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Jim Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Maher, who is Uri Berliner?
Mr. Berliner is a former senior editor,
That's all?
a former senior business editor for NPR.
How long do you work at NPR?
I believe he was there just over 25 years.
25 years? Award-winning journalist? Did he win any awards?
Our time to
Peabody Award? That's pretty important, isn't it?
That is,
So
absolutely.
pretty distinguished journalist, right?
Certainly.
And he wrote a long story about what you do at NPR. Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of
Never?
political bias determining editorial decisions, no.
Well, Mr. Berliner, in his story last year, wrote, in the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration, but I find that
Was
concerning.
award-winning journalist who worked 25 years at NPR, Mr. Berliner, was he lying when he wrote that?
I am not presuming such. I just we don't track that information about our journalists.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
It's concern. I mean, it wasn't 44-43, it wasn't 60-27, it wasn't 70-17, it wasn't even 80-7. It was 87 Democrats, 0 Republicans, and you say NPR is not biased. How about the big stories over the last few years? According to Mr. Berliner, again, he wrote on the Trump-Russia story, he wrote, at NPR, we hitched our wagon to Trump's most visible antagonist, Representative Adam Schiff. He said they interviewed him 25 times. Is that accurate?
I was not there at the time, but those numbers sound accurate, yes.
Those sound accurate. But then he said when the Mueller report came out and Robert Mueller said he found no evidence of collusion, he said Russiagate faded from our programming. Is that accurate?
Again, I was not there at the time. I couldn't say.
You couldn't say?
I was not at NPR at the time.
You didn't prepare for that? You knew we were going to ask you about this guy, didn't you? It's come up like 6,000 times already in the hearing.
I just couldn't say whether it faded from our coverage, sir.
How about this story? October 2020, the New York Post had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and one of those editors, I guess one of those 87 Democrat editors, said this: we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. We don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' times on stories that are just pure distractions. Was that a pure distraction story?
Our current editorial leadership believes that that was a mistake, as do I.
Yeah, the whole country knows that was a mistake. Definitely impacted the election, or I think it certainly impacted the election. How about the COVID origin story? That's a pretty big story too, right? Mr. Berliner said, we became fervent members of the team natural origin, even declaring that the lab leak was debunked by scientists. Turns out, though, the lab leak is what most people think actually caused the COVID virus.
Sorry, is there a question there?
There is. You guys were 0 for 3 on the three of the biggest stories in the last 5 years. You guys were 0 for 3, and yet you maintain that NPR is not biased?
Congressman, I do not believe we are politically biased. No, we are a nonpartisan organization.
Nonpartisan organization. What's happening to your listeners over the last 5 years? Went up, down, or stayed the same?
It has gone up and down and is now going back up.
Well, I thought 5 years ago it was at 60 million. And you said in your opening statement, I think 43 million.
That's correct.
So 43 million now, and it was at 60 million 5 years ago. I can do some math. That looks like it went down.
And is now going back up.
It's now going back up?
Yes, it is.
How much has it went back up?
It's gone up a couple of millions over the past
Oh,
years.
so you went from 60 million to 41 million. Now you're back up to 43 million.
In a year's time, I'm very proud of that growth, sir.
Okay, you're proud of that growth. Okay. But over 5 years, it's went down 18 million.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Should taxpayers subsidize NPR?
I believe that taxpayers subsidize local stations, sir. That is the vast majority of where
I thought
federal
you said
funding
you got
goes.
11 million from Corporation of Public Broadcasting, which is taxpayer funded directly to you, right?
That is to support the public
And
radio
then local
satellite
stations get it
system.
from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, right? They get taxpayer
100
money.
million that goes to the local
100 million goes
stations,
to local stations, and then those local stations buy back programming and content from you. So that money goes to the local stations, comes back to you, gets routed through the local stations, all taxpayer money.
Those fees are actually based on private donations rather than on federal funding.
Well, we all know money's fungible, so some of it gets put in there.
Certainly, we could agree that money is fungible.
What? More money for less listeners. You fired the guy who pointed all this out, who said that you were so biased to the left that you lost listeners, which is exactly happening, and you're here maintaining that, oh, you need to continue to get taxpayer money.
I did not fire Mr. Berliner, sir.
Okay, the guy that left after all that. Understand. Are you fundraising off today's hearing?
Sir, I believe that there was a message that went out earlier today letting people know we were coming in. Yes.
Yeah, and at the bottom of the message it said, donate now, right?
I don't recall the exact
I
language.
can show it to you. Right there it is, donate now. I mean, I'm not against fundraising. We all do it. I mean, I get it. But it's, I assume this fundraising thing is probably going to all the left listeners who are subsidized content by the taxpayers, and that's
The
the
gentleman's
rub.
time is
That's
expired.
the rub.
I now recognize Mr. Timmons from South Carolina for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the witnesses for being here today. I'm going to begin by saying this. We don't want to shut down NPR or PBS, but we have $36 trillion in debt, and we have run a $1.8 trillion annual deficit, and we are scouring all government spending, not just Democrat priorities, but Republican priorities too. We're going to be going through the defense budget. We're going to be making sure that we are spending our taxpayer dollars wisely because we have an existential threat. We have an existential threat. We cannot continue down this path financially. So we do not want to shut you down, but we cannot continue down this path. And so if our debt is part of the reason we're here, I think another part of the reason we're here, reevaluating your role in the government's use of taxpayer dollars to partially fund your institutions is because technology has changed everything. We are not living in 1967. And the internet has changed our society. We have such increased social interconnectedness, and there are various options for people to get news and to get disinformation or information, whatever you want to get. So those are the two kind of reasons I want to start with, and that's probably half the problem we're here for. The other half is your perceived bias and your content moderation and the manner in which you are violating journalistic integrity. And I'll say this, NPR, you have been far worse at this. Ms. Kerger, you have done a much better job at this, but we still have some issues we're going to talk about. Ms. Maher, do you think that the public statements you have made on social media create a challenge in your leadership for what should be an unbiased public information system? Do you think that your past comments, I'll give you a better question, did they come up in your job interview? Like, do you see a problem?
Congressman, thank you for the question. No, they never came up in my job interview.
You're a rabid progressive. Like, and do you not think it's a problem that your political leanings make it seem to the American people that you're not biased and that you're not doing your job? Because you agree that your job is to have journalistic integrity, right?
Absolutely, but there is a strong firewall between the newsroom and anything that I do.
Let's talk about the newsroom. You have 87 registered Democrats, not a single Republican in your editor board. So, I mean, how does that work to give us the perception that you're doing your job of actually delivering unbiased information.
Well, I would agree with you that that number is a concern if it is accurate. I do believe that we need to have journalists who represent the full breadth of the American society so that we can report well for all Americans.
Well, I think that you are failing. I realize you've only been there for a year, but I just really think that while it is a small portion of your budget, you very much should expect to restructure your revenue streams, because I don't think that NPR is necessarily worth saving. And I'm going to go on to Ms. Kerger. I will say this. You have been very professional, and you have been there for decades, and I think that you've done a fairly good job over your tenure. But I want to ask you a very simple question. In retrospect, do you think that it was inappropriate to put the drag queen on the kids' show? Do you think that was a mistake?
The drag queen was actually not on any of our kids' shows. The image that Chairman Taylor Greene showed was from a project that our New York City station did with the New York City Department of Education.
What time of day did it air?
It did not air. It was a digital project they did for the Department of Education.
Do you think
it only
that
appeared on our
unit should
website
have anything to do with PBS? Do you think that human? I mean, do you see?
It was not a PBS. It was not for PBS. It was
Okay, so you're
mistakenly
saying we
put
just
it on
got
our
bad information.
website by our. I'm sorry. I don't mean to talk over you. It was mistakenly put on our website by our New York City station. It was not intended for national
Okay.
distribution. It was immediately pulled down. It was never
How
broadcast.
about, do you think that you should publish something that calls trees racist? Is that, in retrospect, should you have published that?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
You had
Congressman.
a segment that it was called Racist Trees, and it was I mean, we've already referenced it a number of times. So, I mean, do you think trees can be racist? I guess that's a good one.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never
Okay.
heard of what you're referring to.
All right, well,
but I'd be happy to look into it.
I guess, last, do you think that it's appropriate to expose children to issues of transitioning? Do you see a problem with that? Is that something you should avoid?
That is not anything on any of our children's programs at all.
Ms. Kerger, you have done a far better job here today, and we're going to continue to have this conversation. But again, we have $36 trillion in debt, and we're trying to figure out how to make sure that our kids and our grandkids have an opportunity at the American dream, because if we don't change course financially, they won't. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you.